In the mid-80s, there was a movie that came out about evil little monsters wreaking havoc. A movie that everyone was going to see in droves, and that movie was Gremlins. Well, okay, apart from Gremlins, there was another Little Monsters movie that came out round about that time that people were also going to see, and that movie was Critters. Well, okay, if after watching Gremlins and Critters, if movie audiences still needed their evil little monsters causing chaos fix, then they had Ghoulies too. The not as well known evil little creatures movie of that era, but one that still has an adoring fan base. However, Ghoulies is quite unique as it involves satanic cults, creepy old houses, supernatural rituals, possession, glowing green eyes, and of course, Ghoulies. As a young couple inherit a house where all manner of chaos is unleashed in this fun 1985 cheese fest. So it's time to look at Ghoulies, aka the movie that isn't Gremlins or Critters, by looking into 10 things that you didn't know about Ghoulies. And if you already did know them, then what the heck, I'm still going to entertain you anyway. Check it out, we shall.
They call me Dick, but you can call me Dick.
Number 10, Ghoulies was conceived thanks to the idea of making a single location horror movie. Ghoulies is the brainchild of its director, Luca Bakovicai, who in 1982 starred in the horror movie Parasite, which, as you can tell by the movie's poster, is in 3D. Seriously, that's a lot of 3D. It's like they wrote it 6 times in case you didn't catch it the first time. While making Parasite, Bakovicai had become acquainted with that movie's producer, Charles Band, who at the time was the founder of Empire Pictures, which had produced several horror movies including The Reanimator. Bakovicai got the idea of making a horror movie set at a single location, in this case an old house, and took the idea to Charles Band, where the Ghoulies project was greenlit, with Bakovicai acting as the movie's director and writer. Although there are stories floating around out there that Band was originally going to be the director, with Stan Winston on board to do the special effects, as the two had worked together on the as-mentioned Parasite. But the production was hit with many problems and setbacks, which prevented Ghoulies from being a Charles Band-directed movie featuring monstrous creatures by Stan Winston. Which is a shame, because had Stan Winston been involved, then that would have been pretty awesome. Number 9, Ghoulies was going to be a kids movie. After getting greenlit, the project stalled into a 5-month post-production period. From different sources I've looked into, there are all sorts of stories floating about on how the production kind of collapsed, with the script requiring rewrites. Supposedly at one stage, 20th Century Fox even picked up the production, where it was given a budget of $12 million, and then 20th Century Fox apparently left the production, and then it was only given a budget of $1 million. Look, it's hard to tell what is fact and what is hearsay. But what does seem to be conclusive is that at one stage, Ghoulies was going to be a more kid-friendly movie, about a young boy who visits his grandfather's creepy old house, where he encounters the sinister ghoulie creatures. The original idea sounds like it was going to have more of a Goonies and Monsters Squad vibe. However, it was decided that the movie may be more successful if Ghoulies appealed to a teenage audience instead, where the characters were made older and more gore was added, making Ghoulies less Goonies and more A Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, after all, during the 80s, teenage horror movies were pretty big business. Number 8. The Little Monster Coincidence. Ghoulies, like Critters, is often thought of as being a Gremlins clone, a movie that cash grabbed and capitalized on this newfound interest in monsters causing a stir, which proved to be popular with the Spielberg-produced movie. However, Ghoulies isn't a Gremlins clone, as the script was written long before anyone in the production was even aware of Gremlins. In fact, Ghoulies was meant to come out first, but during the shoot, the production had run out of money, which caused producer Charles Band to try and scrimp and scrape to get money together so Ghoulies could be completed, which delayed the production by several months. And because of that, Gremlins came out first and swept everyone away, and was seen as an original movie about small creatures doing evil deeds. It makes you wonder what it would have been like if Ghoulies was released first. Would it have been more successful? And would Ghoulies have been the movie that everyone would have seen as the new innovative horror movie about small monster creatures? But hey, it was the 1980s. The time where small wacky monsters were the craze, as you had gimmicks like My Pet Monster and of course Gremlins. Can you not please? Can you seriously just stop? Idiot. Number 7, original choice to play the lead. So now we get to the cast of Ghoulies. Well, the movie stars a very young Mariska Hargitay, who played a character called Donna. Hargitay would become better known for starring in Law & Order Special Crimes Unit. Now, I've never seen Law & Order Special Crimes Unit, but I just know that if I didn't add that snippet of information, then some people probably would have cracked the shits. The Wolfgang character was played by Jack Nance, who played Henry in the surreal David Lynch classic Eraserhead. The lead role of Jonathan Graves was played by an actor called Peter Leopis, who hasn't starred in many other things that I've seen. However, originally horror movie icon Jeffrey Combs auditioned for the part, but as fate would have it, Combs didn't get the role and was cast in The Reanimator instead, which, as mentioned, was made the same time as Ghoulies, and like Ghoulies, was produced by Empire Pictures. I think had Combs been cast in the movie, then his oddball, quirky nature definitely would have gone with Ghoulies. But regardless, Peter Leopis still does a good job and gives a unique performance. Number 6, 3D Ghoulies. In the early to mid 80s, the 3D gimmick had temporarily become popular again in cinema, particularly with horror movies. That's why we ended up with efforts like Friday the 13th 3D, Amityville 3D, Jaws 3D, and Parasite 3D, which, as you can see, is written on the poster in case you didn't know it was in 3D. And Ghoulies was to be no exception, as the movie was planned to be another 3D horror movie spectacle. Interestingly, Ghoulies was meant to be more of an interactive 3D experience, where the movie was shown in 2D, but for certain scenes, the movie would shift to 3D, where movie audiences were then required to put on the 3D shades. Because of this, the movie had to be shot in both 2D and 3D, and according to IMDb, it was just 2 days after filming when the production got fed up with the complex process of filming in 2D and 3D, and just decided to film in 2D instead. This actually explains why there are so many scenes of characters wearing sunglasses. Apparently, when a character puts on sunglasses was when the audience also had to put on the 3D shades. It was kind of like a wink and a nudge to the audience that things were about to go all 3D. Number 5, original title. Believe it or not, but the original title of Ghoulies was going to be Beasties. Which, yeah, okay, I get it. The monsters we see in the movie are pretty beastly, but to me, Beasties just doesn't have the distinct, unique tone that Ghoulies has. So Beasties was scrapped in favour for Ghoulies. But the big question is, what does Ghoulie mean? Well, apparently there are some claims that the word is a combination of Gremlins and Goonies, which I'm guessing is part of the Ghoulies being a rip-off theory. I always thought it was a reference to the word ghoul, only slightly altered and changed. After all, the creatures are pretty ghoulish. But nope, that's not correct either. In the Persian language, Ghoulie translates to little monster, which actually makes sense, and would have saved some confusion if it was made clearer in the movie's promotion. But yeah, technically Ghoulie's title simply translates to little monster, not to be confused with the Fred Savage movie, Little Monsters. Number 4, the infamous poster. Now we get to the thing that everyone remembers about Ghoulies, the infamous poster of a ghoulie coming out of a toilet bowl. This movie poster definitely left its mark, and was the movie's biggest contribution to pop culture. I can remember visiting a video store as a kid and seeing the Ghoulies VHS cover, and it just scared the crap out of me and haunted my nightmares. I found the idea of sitting on a toilet and having a monster pop up and bite your bare bum and other bits to be truly horrific. Even the pink lighting on the cover creeped me out. That pink lighting alone was letting you know that this was a creepy and insane movie experience like no other. The whole connecting Ghoulies with a toilet bowl was actually an afterthought during the movie's post-production, where the producers were brainstorming ideas on how to promote the movie in a unique way that'll make the movie stand out, where producer Charles Band came up with the idea of having a ghoulie coming out of a toilet bowl. Although, Band has since claimed that it was someone else who came up with the idea, so who knows. So the poster was made, and was so impressive that despite the fact that filming had wrapped up, a new scene was filmed which showed a ghoulie coming out of a toilet, which, oddly, just didn't look as epic as it did on the poster. However, not everyone was impressed with the movie's poster. The poster caused the studio to get a ton of angry letters from parents, whose children had seen the poster and were left traumatized and refusing to use the toilet. Apparently, the whole ghoulie coming out of a toilet gimmick caused all those involved to get a ton of hate mail, thanks to annoyed parents and their petrified kids who were now too scared to use the bathroom. I would say something about how the parents should have just explained to their kids that it was just a movie and not real. But at the same time, I was one of those kids who saw the poster and got terrified. I think back then you generally didn't see toilet bowls on movie posters in general, so the whole thing was just weird. Although, looking at the poster now, I don't know why it was so scary, because if you actually look closely at the ghoulie, you can see that he's actually just a small toy. Weird. The 1980s, man. Number 3, sequels. Yeah, believe it or not, but Ghoulies would go on to get 3 sequels, making it a horror movie franchise. So with the sequels, they can now do new and exciting things with the Ghoulies and try different scares, where we get the Ghoulies 2 poster, where they just doing the toilet gimmick all over again. Oh, well, okay. Maybe they'll try something different with the third one, Ghoulies 3, which, once again, features Ghoulies on a toilet bowl. Right. Well, okay, maybe the 4th movie will offer something new, and nope, we got Ghoulies and toilet bowls again. Okay, seriously, it's like the production really couldn't get over the toilet bowl thing on the first poster, and they were just winging it and milking it for everything it's worth. But okay, to be fair, I am judging a book by its cover here. Ghoulies 2 came out in 1987 and features the Ghoulies running havoc at an amusement park. This time there was more Ghoulies and less weird people with sunglasses doing rituals, and the movie generally looks more polished and more like a Hollywood movie than all the other entries. Then in 1991 there was Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College. This one seems to be much more of an all-out wacky comedy, kind of going for an Animal House and Porky's vibe. Then finally in 1994 there was Ghoulies 4, which was a straight-to-video affair, and saw the return of Peter Leopis reprising his role of Jonathan Graves, but this time he's a one-liner spouting cop, which is weird. Look, I can't really comment on Ghoulies 4 because I haven't seen it, but I'm not particularly sold on the trailer either. And as for the creature makeup effects, oh dear. Let's just say they look like they've gone down in quality. Number 2, ghoulish lawsuits. Ghoulies found itself in hot water several times during and after its production, which would result in several lawsuits. A lawsuit was filed just 5 weeks into the movie's shoot by an independent production company called Hemdale Film Corporation, who also that year co-produced fellow B horror movies Return of the Living Dead and Howling 2: Your Sister is a Werewolf. The information as to what the lawsuit was about is actually quite hazy and not exactly made clear, probably due to legal issues, but apparently Hemdale Films were going to distribute Ghoulies for its release in the States, but they sued the producer Charles Band because he supposedly misled them in regards to home video sales and general distribution rights. And if all this wasn't worrying enough, after the movie's release, Warner Bros. Filed a lawsuit claiming that the title of Ghoulies sounded too similar to Gremlins, and that they were ripping off their product. However, Warner Bros. Lost the lawsuit and it didn't go anywhere. Probably because the powers that be could prove that the script was written long before Gremlins came out. That and Ghoulies was actually meant to come out before Gremlins, but as mentioned, it got pushed back due to monetary issues. Number 1, shrugged off as a ripoff. I know I keep bringing up Gremlins in this episode, but it's kind of impossible to talk about Ghoulies without mentioning Gremlins, because Gremlins was such a huge movie, which also featured pocket-sized monsters causing chaos. It's left a big permanent stamp in the world of Ghoulies, and at no fault of Ghoulies, it's now forever going to be compared to Gremlins and thought of as that movie that isn't Gremlins. And nowhere is this more evident than with the movie's theatrical release, where critics pretty much shrugged it off as a Gremlins clone, only not as well made, with not very good special effects and too much gore. Once again, despite the fact that the script was written and the production started long before Gremlins existed. A review from the Monthly Film Bulletin said, quote, "An unashamed rip-off, which contrives to ignore its obvious inspiration Gremlins, and comes up with yet another prime example of the comic bookish vitality, wit, and simplicity which has become Band's trademark." Once again, and I can't stress this enough, despite the fact it went into production before anyone even knew of Gremlins. So I feel like Ghoulies never stood a chance and was unfairly judged and compared to Gremlins, despite no one knowing the background of the movie. Which, I don't know, it just seems a bit harsh to me. Even now, Ghoulies only has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 8%, so its misfortunes are clearly long-lasting. Now, I'm not saying that Ghoulies is a perfect movie. It has issues. Some of the special effects do look cheap for the time, and the acting can seem a little off. And I sometimes get the feeling the movie doesn't know if it wants to be a haunted house movie with cults and rituals, or a playful creature feature with monsters coming out of toilets. But it has become a cult movie, with fans who love it, and it is an enjoyable B-movie. And the cheaper looking special effects do oddly add to that charm. So it's not a perfect movie, but a fun one. But either way, I'm going to judge Ghoulies by its own merits, and not because of another movie that Ghoulies literally had nothing to do with. So that's my view on Ghoulies. It's not a masterpiece, but a fun 1980s B-movie. And if you like 1980s B-movies or old cheesy movies in general, then you will get enjoyment here. Anyway, I'm Minty, and the next time you go to the toilet, have a really good look down in the bowl to make sure you're not about to take a crap on a ghoulie. See ya!